Well, welcome everybody. It is about 10:02 and we're going to get started. Good morning and welcome to Youth Engagement in the Time of Social Distancing and Introductory Conversation. I'm Jen Danifo. I'm Senior Program Officer at the Pennsylvania Humanities Council, and we're so happy to see so many people listening in today. And I just did want to mention quickly, we have Taylor. Taylor, you want to wave? Taylor is our Communications and Programs Associate, and she is with us today, and we'll be managing the chat box, which I'll talk about in a second, because we know all of you are on mute except for the panelists. So if you need to chat at us to kind of tell us, what's going on and to share ideas and questions, please do that, and Taylor will be managing that for us. In addition, we have some great speakers today whom you all should see on the screen, and we will hear from them in just a minute. One thing that I did want to mention again, that we are streaming live on Facebook. So if you want to share that, you can like the Pennsylvania Humanities Council Facebook page, and folks who are not able to get in, because it does look like we're at capacity, can watch that way. Also, we'll share the recording today and the resources. So please either sign in on our virtual sign-in sheet that Taylor is going to put into the chat box every so often, or you can just put your name and email address right into the chat box, and we will pick that up. We'll save that so we have all the names, for when we send things out. So I have my cup of tea. I'm settled in for the morning with my cup of tea, and I hope you guys all have your morning beverage of choice. And I did just want to just review a couple of additional housekeeping things today, and then we will get started. So again, I just wanted to mention all participants are on mute, and we are not supposed to see you because we are in webinar mode today on the Zoom. So use the chat box to share ideas, questions, and resources. We are recording today, and then complete our virtual sign-in. I did want to mention that this is really exciting. You guys are going to hear from Corri Hines in a little bit from the Office of Commonwealth Libraries, but they have said that libraries are eligible for continuing ed credits for participating in today's live event. So, keep that in mind, and that is a great little perk for today. So thank you to them for that. So today's format. So we wanted to talk a little bit about today and why we're offering this webinar. Well, as you guys know, our world has changed quite drastically over the past month. And many of us are engaged with organizations and programs that have had to close or shut down face-to-face activities. And our own humanities-based youth programming, Teen Reading Lounge, has been impacted as well. And we know that our young people come to depend on a lot of the programming and engagement that we offer. So PHC, as a statewide organization, reached out to some of our statewide partners and friends like the Pennsylvania Statewide Afterschool Youth Development Network and the Office of Commonwealth Libraries. And we know that those organizations, just like you, care about young people across Pennsylvania. And we wanted to spark a conversation about what we can do during this time, because there is a lot of uncertainty. Our doors lots of our doors are closed, although some of us may remain open for different reasons, but we have to kind of maybe rethink the way we're engaging with youth, and maybe even programming and how to do that for the time being. We know that maintaining connections with our young people is perhaps even more important during this uncertain time, so we hope today will help to inspire you to reach out. So we'll have some resources today, some ideas and considerations for engaging with youth despite the COVID-19 coronavirus impacts. And I just want to mention, this is we're calling this an introductory conversation because we don't claim to have all of the answers or all of the resources. There are a lot of things out there. In fact, so many resources that it's almost overwhelming. But today our presenters are going to share some of their favorites, and also some really specific statewide resources that organizations can really can help organizations think about this. And we also want you to share. So if you guys have program ideas that you're already thinking about, or ways of engaging, or things that you've heard about from other people, the national out of school time, network, please share that in the chat box. And, we would love for you guys to be talking to one another throughout this. So today's format is simple. We're going to do, I'm doing the welcome now. We're going to hear from our statewide and youth development presenters. They'll each get about 8 minutes to talk a little bit about, what they're seeing and to share some resources and ideas. Then we'll stop for Q&A. And again, Taylor will be managing the chat box, so we'll give you kind of a heads up before our last presenter goes, so that you guys can get questions ready. And then we'll hear from our after-school providers. We have 3 after-school providers who are going to talk about program and engagement stories, just ways they're thinking about this. Then we'll do another quick Q&A, and then we'll have some final tips, guidance, and resources, and then we'll be done for the day. So, you know, before I turn it over to Laura from PSAYDN, I did just want to mention that, you know, our partners on this, I mentioned PSAYDN and the Office of Commonwealth Libraries, but a lot of you may not know the Pennsylvania Humanities Council. And I did just want to mention a little bit about PHC. We are an independent nonprofit, and we really believe in putting the humanities in action to create positive change. And we invite you guys to learn more about us at pahumanities.org. You know, the name of our game is really bringing humanities-based programming to everybody, including young people, through our Teen Reading Lounge program. And so, you know, we invite you to be a part of our network and learn more about us. And then quickly, you know, we mentioned in the call for, you know, engagement that this is kind of grown out of our Teen Reading Lounge program. It's a statewide program. The red dots on this map represent all of our Teen Reading Lounge sites. I'm pretty sure this is up to date. It might be maybe a year old, but still, you know, you guys can see that it's a pretty wide network of primarily libraries that run Teen Reading Lounge, and we also have 3 out-of-school time sites, school-based sites in Philadelphia that are piloting it. TRL is what we call a interactive reading and discussion program, and it's been out there for about 10 years. We do have some resources on our website if folks are interested in learning more about the program. But this grew out of our Teen Reading Lounge network, but we're really excited to see that so many of you who are not, you know, necessarily involved in TRL but are engaging young people are here today to learn a little more. So you will hear from some of our TRL sites today about what they're doing with programming and engagement. All right, so we have some amazing people ready to go today to talk to you. First up is Laura Saccente from PSAYDN, the Pennsylvania Statewide Afterschool Youth Development Network. Then we'll hear from Corri Hines from Office of Commonwealth Libraries. And finally, from the great and good Valerie Adams-Bass, who has been a Teen Reading Lounge Youth Development Program Advisor for PHC for, God, 4 or 5 years. God, I keep saying 5. It's probably like 6 now. So we'll hear from her she'll be the last presenter to talk about youth development. And while I get Laura's slides up, I'm going to ask her to take herself off of mute and to introduce herself while I get her slides ready.
Great. Thanks so much, Jen. And thanks so much for all of our partners and colleagues and those on our Facebook Live and Zoom that are participating today. It's all great to at least hear from you virtually. It's, you know, unprecedented times, so it's nice that we can all get together in this type of format. So I really want to thank the Pennsylvania Humanities Council for putting this together for us. My name again is Laura Saccente, and I serve as the director of the Pennsylvania Statewide Afterschool Youth Development Network. That acronym is PSAYDN. We are a statewide intermediary that is supported nationally by the Mott Foundation. So there is a network in every state that you can connect to. We are also supported by several other funders, as well as the Pennsylvania Department of Education. We're located in Camp Hill in the Center for Schools and Communities, as well as our fiscal sponsor is the Central Susquehanna Intermediate Unit. You can see on our slide, our mission is focused on providing support to both licensed and non-licensed after-school program and summer learning and youth development programs across the state for providers to really help enhance the welfare of Pennsylvania's children, youth, and families. So we have about 3,000 or so members that are connected with us, about 6,000 programs that are mapped out across the state, and work with hundreds of partners across the state. Next slide, please. So if you're not already connected with us, I encourage you to do so. And I encourage you to do so, especially during this time. We've been putting out weekly blasts with resources during the COVID-19 pandemic. So what you can do to connect and receive those resources is simply go onto our website at PSAYDN.org. There you will click in to become a member. It's a free membership, and that will get you into our weekly e-blasts. We also post items through our Twitter and Facebook feeds, but a lot of the information that you're going to see in our e-blasts and in our social media is in regards to resources, events, likely virtual events now, professional development learning, employment, and really all things after school, summer learning, or STEM related. So I encourage you also, I know in just getting connected to resources is important, but I think also during this time, it's really important to socially interact virtually to connect with each other now is more important than ever. So we did just recently put together a private Facebook group for after school and summer learning providers. You can see you can see the link that you can click right into. This will take you to that private Facebook group. There's just a few questions that you would have to answer, and this will connect you with Pennsylvania providers from across the state. So you can share best practices, challenges, and information. Next slide, please. So there are a host of resources, and again, as Jen was saying, I think it can overwhelm individuals. So I'm going to pinpoint just a few that we work with on a regular basis. That way, I would encourage you to bookmark these because this is all fluid information. As it was stated in the beginning, we are not the resource experts. I would hope that you go to these sites to get information, but things change on a daily basis. And as I'm speaking more from a statewide approach, your local districts are all different in Pennsylvania. So I would always suggest that you talk with your local partners at the same time, because something could be happening that we don't know about from the statewide perspective. But I would encourage everyone on a regular basis to tune in with the Pennsylvania Department of Education. They do have some dedicated resources for COVID-19. In fact, yesterday, they just put out some information about what's going to be happening in the next few weeks, and online platforms that districts will be able to partner with youth in the forthcoming months. So this is really good information to know. I would encourage you, as you're thinking about ways that you can connect with your youth, also to connect with those partners in your local area. Connect with your educators, with other teachers, connect with the superintendents of the school districts, of the children we represent, principals, because they are going to help you guide and navigate in the direction of how to take those next steps in online programming. In those discussions, you'll be able to find out where those gaps are, and also you'll be able to find how they're connecting with your students as well. So it's really a partnership. Also, if you or someone you know need licensed childcare, Department of Human Services has all of the waiver applied childcare facilities on their website. So you can go and check that out by distance. So you'll be able to see what programs are providing services to essential workers. Many of you, as you're finding out ways to connect with your youth, you're also struggling in finding out with your own systems and nonprofits. So I would encourage you to go onto the After School Alliance website, and this is also in our e-blast. The Alliance is going to provide you with information on how, and actually templates on how to take you and navigate you through the process of applying for the Paycheck Protection Act loans, for working out opportunities through the federal stimulus legislation, because this could be a challenge for some of you to navigate. You may be feeling overwhelmed. So there's a lot of opportunities on here for your own programming to collect those resources. I'm also going to say that many of our youth programming sites are thinking or currently are providing meals to students and families. This is one outlet that we're seeing across the state. If you are interested in that, or maybe you are just wanting to share with families those local providers that are doing that, these two sites through the Department of Education and through the Department of Agriculture can connect you with emergency food banks or meal providers. There's also a hashtag on Twitter you can find through the Department of Education and that you can follow that connects you to some real-time activity across the state. Another issue we're going to be talking about today is connectivity, access, equity and technology. So this is a site that shows you a snapshot of Pennsylvania with connectivity and broadband, but we'll be talking about that in a little bit more. But I just wanted to show you another resource, and also you can talk to your local providers about connectivity issues. And again, in some of you are facing your own challenges, or you know families that are facing challenges, I would encourage you to connect with the United Way. Every United Way has some great resources on their page that can help guide local concerns and challenges. Next slide, please. We also just have to think about not only the youth that are currently in our program, but those youth across the state that are not currently connected. So this is just a list of resources. I'm not going to go through them all, but really thinking about those underserved youth populations in the foster care, homeless populations that we may not have access to currently. So these are a list of national resources for you to engage with to help, whether it's partner programs or whether you're more interested in knowing how to help and support those underserved youth. All of these links are very useful. Next slide, please. And finally, I just, threw up here just a slight representation of the resources that we're currently kicking out on our e-blast. Again, this can be overwhelming. There's a lot out there. So that's why these social platforms are so important, so we can learn from each other about resources and best practices. The only one I will mention on the top here is the Pennsylvania Public Television page. This will be an online partnership with the Department of Education. It's very unique because it's going to provide programming from pre-K up to high school. So I do encourage you to check that out, as we'll be seeing more information about that coming out. And again, I would just end with this as we continue the discussion, and don't overwhelm yourself with all of the activities. I think in this environment, engaging in youth and just having that conversation and social interaction is something that's really important right now. So you don't necessarily have to have some distinct activities each time or programming. It might be just an opportunity for them to connect with their peers, host an open forum, ask them some questions, share some dialogue. So I think however you engage students, we're here to give you some support and resources, but understand that there's many ways to do this. So we look forward to hearing how you all are attempting to do this in your own virtual environments. So thank you, Jen. With that, I'll wait until questions are open to address any of those.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Laura. This is really, really helpful and great to see from a statewide perspective, what you guys are seeing, and also understanding that everybody is trying to figure this out together. There's no necessarily right way of doing this, although there are some guidelines, of course, depending on where you are across the state. So great. So next I'm going to bring up Corri. So Corri Hines, I would love for you, Corri, to take yourself off of mute. And while I get your slides ready, if you could introduce yourself and say a little bit about, why you're here today.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Corri Hines, and I am the School Age Services Advisor with the Bureau of Library Development at the Office of Commonwealth Libraries and Pennsylvania Department of Education. thank you all so much for attending this morning. I deeply appreciate the resilience of the amazing youth services workers we have here in Pennsylvania, and that's everyone in libraries and schools, in childcare programs. We're in a very unique position right now to have an awareness that we're living through a major historical event. And it's so essential to have conversations like this in an open forum so we can forge the path forward and determine where we're going from here. I am going to be sharing some resources with you today from the Office of Commonwealth Libraries, from some library professional organizations, and give you some professional development tools as well. So Jen, you can go ahead and advance. Right here I have state COVID-19 resources for libraries. These are things from the Office of Commonwealth Libraries, specifically for Pennsylvania libraries. There is a page, Guidance and Resources for Public Libraries, and this includes a lot of great information, including closures guidance and information, messages from the Office of Commonwealth Libraries that are really important in sharing that information to the library field. Some answers to frequently asked questions, and then of course the Pennsylvania COVID-19 website that is updated daily, and it's a really great resource to know the facts and have an awareness of what is happening here in our state. There's also a resource account that you can email questions or concerns about COVID-19, things that are directly related to that. And then your questions will be appropriately logged and tracked and answered. So I encourage you to use this if you have questions or concerns that we can answer. So we're making sure that we have a good idea of what is needed in the field at this time. All right, Jen, you can go to the next slide. Here I have some resources from the American Library Association. They have a really, really great page, Pandemic Preparedness, and this has lots of tools and resources for you to use. There are news items from ALA regarding the pandemic, as well as some guidelines for libraries. There are a number of webinars from the Center for Disease Control, the Association of College and Research Libraries, American Libraries Live, the Public Library Association, among others, and there are dates for both upcoming and archived webinars. There are some great resources, guides, and tools, web pages that directly address everything from social distancing procedures to handling collection to sanitizing. So be sure to check those out to get the best practices and recommendations. There's a section from the CDC. There are guides. Some of these things actually directly address young people. I thought this was really great. The CDC has a graphic novel, and if you know me, you know I'm a huge, huge fan of graphic novels. I think they're so great. It's called Preparedness 101, Zombie Pandemic. It sounds really fun, and it's a good way to explain what is going on in a way that will appeal, I think, to teens. And then finally, there's some resources from the American Psychological Association. These are resources on coping mechanisms during the outbreak, managing stress and anxiety, and this is so important right now, especially to be sensitive of the needs of young people right now, dignifying their feelings, showing empathy for what they're going through, and just generally being a good person during this situation. Jen, you can go to the next slide here. These are resources from YALSA. This is the Young Adult Library Association, Services Association. And these are just some really great resources that any teen librarian or library staff member should be aware of. First is the Teen Literacies Toolkit. This is a really good resource for understanding how to address multiple literacies. And I think it's important for us now because it also highlights ways to navigate teens' digital media landscape use. And right now that's more crucial than ever. Next is the Teen Services Competencies for Library Staff. This is an excellent, excellent resource for library staff in both public and school libraries to make sure that teens are receiving high quality service in development, engagement, sensitivity, and equity. Next are the 2018 free YALSA webinars that directly address these teen services competencies. So make sure you check those out. And then finally, the National Forum on Transforming Teen Services and Continuing Education. I started with teen services. I've done a lot with teen services in my library career. They have my heart. And I really think it's so essential, especially during this time, to explore ways how libraries and schools can reimagine the delivery of teen services by investing in staff and helping them cultivate those skills to support the diverse needs of all teens. Okay, next slide. Thank you. And this is a big thank you to YALSA's CE consultant, Linda Braun. She was essential in getting some of these resources together. Some other resources for you to check out, the American Association of School Librarians. It's a fabulous resource for staff working in and working with school libraries. It's my personal hope that both school and public libraries will work together during this time and moving forward for the benefit of all youth. Next is the Association of Middle Level Education. Has some really good articles and blog posts about working with middle school age groups. The American Youth Policy Forum is crowdsourcing a set of resources related to connecting to underserved youth during COVID-19. And then the Public Library Association, it has a lot of useful resources and data about what libraries are doing during this time. Not all of it is really directly related to youth services. But I do want to highlight that there is a COVID-19 webinar series running from March 26th to April 16th. And there are lots of resources from library partners and health authorities and more self-care and well-being strategies that are really going to be beneficial in helping teens. You can go on to the next slide, Jen. And really at this time, what we have is time. So I think it's very important for us as librarians, professionals working with teens and youth to build our skills while we have a chance. It's a good time to do this to build your skills for the task at hand, whether that's navigating our new digital landscape or figuring out how to work Zoom or Skype or BlueJeans, but also to be top condition when we are together in the future, and that is sincerely my hope. WebJunction has a number of fabulous courses that are available. Some of them do offer CE credits, and there are a lot of courses on technology as well. The Compendium, it's a great Pennsylvania library resource that is compiled by Diana Megdad at OCL. She does a great job with that, so make sure you check there for Pennsylvania library news. Professional organizations that are directly related to libraries, ALA, YALSA, Pennsylvania Library Association. So check those out for some resources. For libraries, be sure to be in touch with your consultants, with your youth services consultants, your IT professionals. They may have some news specifically related to your district that can help you out during this time. I know there's a lot of buzz right now about copyright and what can we read online during story times, what can we share. Please check out the copyright information at Penn State. There are professional copyright trained librarians who really understand that and are there to help you out. And then finally, Development Without Limits is helping youth-serving intermediaries and organizations develop leaders. And this is a really good way to navigate our current landscape with the focus of serving youth. And then you can go to my last slide, Jen. I again want to thank everyone so much for attending this session. It's so great for all of us to be able to come together and focus on what we can do long-term and short-term. And really, if I can say anything, it's just to have hope that this situation eventually will resolve and that we will all be stronger and our teens will all be stronger based on these great conversations that we're having. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Corri. I too love the piece on coping with stress and fear and anxiety. I think that is so needed during this time, because whether or not you outwardly show that or hold it in, I think this is a good thing to model for young people, and also sharing some of those resources could be really helpful as well. So thank you for including that. I think that's wonderful. So awesome. Thank you to Corri for sharing some of the library specific resources. I wanted to, the next person that we're going to have talk before we break out for a Q&A is Valerie Adams-Bass. And Valerie, while I get, actually, you know what, I don't have So if you want to take yourself off of mute, and if you want to share slides, let me know and I can stop sharing.
Sure. Hi, good morning, I believe, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I do have a few slides, Jen, so I'll share them.
Okay, so I'll stop mine so that you can. Okay, there you go.
Awesome. Let me see. Okay. All right, so I have just a few slides, and I'm going to talk more from a practical perspective on positive youth development. What are some practical things we're going to do or could do that's related to the science of positive youth development, because you've heard quite a bit about the different kinds of resources that are available to you. And my last slide, which I'm going to start with as my first slide, is just thank you for caring. Thank you for caring. Thank you for being present. And thank you for acknowledging and keeping the needs of children at the forefront. We are experiencing a humanitarian crisis. That's a language we don't typically use here in the United States. I just happen to teach a class on this, so I'm glad to be a part of this workshop. And I just want to sort of have these slides here. For some of you who are part of our Teen Reading Lounge Network, you've seen this slide. For others, you may or may not have seen this slide. But oftentimes as a person or an adult, a professional, whether you're a librarian or working out of school time, these are sort of the key terms that you hear around working with children. So caring adults, autonomy, safe space, flexible attendance. And so during this time, which is unprecedented for us here in this country, it's like, well, what do we do now? How do we ensure that we stay connected to young people? How do we ensure that they are getting these resources and that we're able to make them feel that we still care, that there's still opportunities, safe opportunities for outlets? And so I want to say we want to think about doing positive youth development from a distance. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. And so some of these things you can actually do from a distance, a little bit more challenging, a little bit more work, but it's doing positive youth development from a distance. So how can we do that? What are some practical ways that we can continue to be champions for young people, stay connected, encourage them to stay connected to one another when we really can't touch each other physically? We can't be in the same proximity because of the social distancing. So let's talk a little bit more about, one, the fact that you're reaching out, you're making sure resources are available for them demonstrates that you are a caring adult, right? And then thinking about a safe space. Literally now, we're thinking about a safe space. And for some of us, depending on the young people we work with, whether they're in a rural environment, suburban, or urban environment, we may be concerned that the young people we serve, when they came into our doors, that was their only safe space. So that's where I want to encourage you to make sure that you're connecting with partners, as was mentioned earlier, to see, to see to it that there are other ways and mechanisms to ensure that the space that they are in is as safe as it could possibly be during this time. But experiential learning, this is a great time for experiential learning, as well as a time for the young people that you've already had a relationship with, that you're already connected with, to allow them to step up and be leaders. Young people are really innovators and willing to try things differently. So this is a great time for that, as well as a great time for project-based learning in virtual environments. So I just kind of have this definition. This is the working group, the federal working group on positive youth development up top here. I know many of you will be receiving professional development credit, so you can say, here's my definition of positive youth development. I am not going to share that with you, but I do want to talk about some of these other bullets that I have here and how they relate to that last slide in terms of making sure that you are doing positive youth development. So of course, there's the social media platforms. You can choose the social media platform that's best for you and young people, and the one that they have the most access to. Through our conversations across different spaces, both as a professor at the University of Virginia, we think about our students who don't have access because they live in rural environments or they live in city environments. They just don't have internet access the way we assume or take for granted. So there are other ways that I really want to emphasize that you can still stay connected, but certainly social media platforms is a great opportunity to have virtual parties. I think about, you could have a virtual paint party, a virtual read-in. You could have a virtual show and tell of your photography of your neighborhood or favorite things in your community. Those are ways to stay connected. You can have Instagram challenges, dance challenges. Those are things that were already occurring informally in the world of social media. But now thinking about how do we keep the young people connected to us, our organization, and each other, you can formalize these around themes that already existed in your organization or themes that you're creating now that we're in COVID-19 in this period of pretty much sheltering in space, many of us, and social distancing. So really thinking about using those social media platforms and setting specific times and dates for your organization to have a read-in. So for our TRL sites, if you're reading a book and most of your young people have access to computer, you might have a day where everyone reads a chapter, you read a chapter and you talk about it. You might have an Instagram challenge where they pick, you ask young people to pick something that's related to the theme of the week or the theme of the day, and then you have your Instagram stream. So you want to think about ways that they stay connected to whatever the themes were that your organization was involved in. If you are an organization that's sort of an entrepreneur organization, you might have your young people work on using Google Docs to share a document where they can create a business idea right now. So it's not going to be perfect, but these are ways to connect them around the things that they're interested in, and it gives them a chance for autonomy. And again, if there are young people in your organization who are leaders, they can do those things. This is a national pandemic. This is just not isolated to the United States. Many of you already know that, but UNICEF has been doing work around COVID. UNICEF forever has been interested in children and families in emergency situations. So they've actually kicked off today a Read the World program. So I encourage you to follow them on Instagram. I put it here, Read the World. You can go to the website. I also have here, you'll get a chance to look at the slides where different authors from around the globe are going to read excerpts from their book. So I just heard about copywriting. So asking, is it possible for us to read on the book? So this also helps us to understand, as well as your young people to comprehend in terms of dealing with what is it that we're living through, that it's not just in our insular country, right? So other children are dealing with this, other communities are dealing with this. So there's this global effort to connect children across the globe where different authors starting today are reading excerpts from their books. So I encourage you to go to UNICEF. Some people, I may be dating myself, may remember Trick or Treat for UNICEF, right? So that is UNICEF, and there's a global UNICEF, and there are UNICEFs in different parts of the world. So they are putting out information about how the world is responding to the needs of children. So I encourage you to look at that as a resource too, because they are used to dealing with crises of this level and magnitude where we aren't. That isn't to say that we don't have great things here, but if you want to think about how to help your young people sort of see a bigger picture, I encourage you to take a look and connect in that way. Text messaging, I just mentioned, and I'm leaning into these because I know that there is a population that has the digital divide. And so I want to lean into these as ways to make sure that you do stay connected to those more vulnerable populations who don't have readily access to internet connections or reliable internet connections. I think we can all look at the different links and understand how to connect via Twitter, how to connect via TikTok, how to connect via WhatsApp, how to connect via Skype and Zoom. But here are some basic, back to basic ways to also stay connected to young people. Text messaging. So you might have a group message. Again, how do you stay connected? Keep the lines of communication open. You might have a group text that you send out every day, or you might, and again, keep it when you're talking about adolescents, at least, you can have each adolescent be responsible for leading that text message each day. So again, how do you keep the positive youth development connected to the way you are reaching out to young people, so you're not just pushing information to them, they become a part of that process? That's an important thing that we want to think of as we're saying, how do we stay connected? So if you have young people who are always, when you're together, saying, oh, I'll open up Google, or I'll get it set up, I'll get things streaming, then you can call on those young people to start those text messages. So maybe once a week or once every other day, find the group that works best for you. I just want to quickly go over a couple more, and then I want to stop so we have time for questions and answers. This idea of an unprecedented time, a virtual blog when everyone can talk about, add to that blog, document how they're feeling and what they are experiencing during this period in time. How does your community sound? What does your community look like? So that becomes the blog where you are documenting what you're experiencing. So I'm going to pause here because I don't want to go over time, but these are just some simple, basic things that we may get away from when we rely heavily on technology. And even if the blog can't go live, you can start that blog. And for people who don't have, again, internet access, you send a postcard, you send an envelope with instructions, and you follow up with a text message. And these are ways that, again, you can encourage the young people to be part of leading these efforts to stay connected with you and one another, so that we don't default to sort of the normal model or the school-based model where teachers are the leaders. We want the young people to be in partnership with us, and that really is a key element of youth development when we're working with adolescents and preteens. So that's all I have to share at this moment. I may come back in a little later, but I think I'm going to turn it back over to Jen, and we'll see if there are any questions for the three of us. And again, thank you for caring.
Thank you so much, Valerie. It's so great to ground this in positive youth development. I think, this is why we do what we do, because we care, and I think that's a really important thing to point out. One thing I wanted to mention too, Valerie shared some amazing resources. So I don't know if you guys are all familiar with the Search Institute, which is a wonderful organization. I know Valerie is, she's shaking her head. They talk all the time about how to build positive relationships with young people. They have a ton of resources on their website. They recently, in one of my slides later, I was just at the end going to share their COVID-19 checklist. So it's basically taking what does it mean to have a positive relationship with young people, but applying it to the COVID-19 crisis. And it's for practitioners. So on their website, you can download a PDF, and it kind of just walks through what are some of the markers of helping young people through this time that are always important, but even more important now. So I just wanted to mention that. So the Search Institute, if you guys want to take a look at that and help, I think what Valerie is pointing to is grounding yourself in the why and why we do what we do and what it means, and how we might have to change the way we do what we do in order to really make an effort to be intentional and to be equitable about this. So thanks, Valerie. So I wanted to take questions quickly for about 5 minutes, and then we're going to move on to our practitioners so they can share what they're doing, which is very exciting. We had a little bit of a chat, a couple people chatted. I asked them to share what they're doing, if they're doing anything. And the idea of the book-ins was interesting, but some folks mentioned, or we had one individual mention that they're hesitant to start that because they're not sure everybody has the same book at home. So again, this gets to the equity piece and how do you get the books to the young people? How do you find out whether or not they have the book? So Valerie, this is really for you, but Laura and Corri, let me know if you have any examples or anything to share about this. If folks are worried about access to materials, but wanted to do something like a read-in online, what are some ways that they could think about making sure to do that so all young people could be a part of that, regardless of whether or not they have, the book?
Sure. Great question. So I think there are a few things you can do, and the librarians can certainly step in. Many of the libraries, certainly here in Philadelphia, have online access to many, many books where you can easily access those books from home. The other thing is go to author pages. So even if you go to pages like Goodreads and look for the authors, many authors have audio excerpts or they have excerpts from the book. So it may not be the book that you had been reading. You may have to shift gears during this period of time, but there are authors who will have excerpts from their books. Many people right now are also releasing information during this period of time that they wouldn't have before, where if the young people don't have the book in hand, but they do have internet, you can send the link so they can get that link there. You can also share your screen similar to us so that if you have the book, you can share either that reading or that audio file. So I would definitely check Goodreads for those authors who have excerpts, audio excerpts and written excerpts, visual excerpts from their books. Send it their way, and check the different library systems that are releasing information that is freely available, as well as a lot of the Smithsonian museums are releasing information, and some of it was already there. We just only used it when we needed it, right? So you can go to these spaces and find that information. So you may have to shift gears and not read the book that you have been reading, but you'll probably be able to find something else that's fun to replace what you're doing that young people can easily access, even if they don't have it at home in their physical hands.
That's great. Thanks, Valerie. Laura and Corri, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think this is a really good opportunity to have some reader's advisory amongst your teens. I know that reading the same book is, foundation of book clubs, being able to discuss the same piece. But I also think in order to kind of spread that. It's really cool for teens to read different books from different genres and then share their thoughts and opinions on them. Someone could be reading a great fantasy piece, someone could be reading, slice of life, romance, someone else is reading magical realism, and that might open up doors to things that they hadn't tried reading before. And it's a good way to get teens to not only explore their own passions, if they're a diehard action person, maybe you can get them into a different genre, but it's good to let them explore and kind of open up and recommend books to one another. And I think that builds those speaking skills, critical thinking, good judgment. So don't be afraid to have them read different books and then share what they got out of it, because I think that might also spark some good discussion and curiosity amongst your youth.
I ditto all of that. I'm just going back to, access with anything, whether resources or technology. Reach out to those local school partners. Next week, there will be equity grants that schools will be applying for whether it's platform hardware, it could be resources like books. Talk with your schools to see if they're applying for that grant, and talk with them with the families that need those resources.
That's great. And it's great to hear about those equity grants. Is that something new I haven't seen that. Is that a new development?
It came out from the Pennsylvania Department of Education. There's $5 million that this is for underserved school districts in particular, that they can apply for these grants.
That's great. And if folks on the call, I don't know if it's something where you could, if you're connected to a school, is there a way you can find information about that?
Well, I think the grant period is fairly quick. It's from, I believe, April 6th to April 10th. So again, probably school districts or intermediate units are just now talking about this to see if they're going to apply. So establish a good connection with someone in your local area, whether your local school or school district, that could help provide that information for you if your school is applying. If they're not applying, it might mean that they have some resources to support your program already.
Great. Thank you for that, Laura. That's great. That's great to know. And I'm seeing some stuff in the chat going by, and I want to take one more question, and then we're going to move on to the practitioners, because I want to make sure we have time to hear what they're doing. So we have Cece who's asking, does anyone have suggestions about how to do outreach during this time? She just started as a teen services last year, and she doesn't have contact information, so she doesn't know if some people have internet, but she doesn't know how to reach them. Is there any way, during this time where, you can, if you're an organization that doesn't have a great connection or is new to the organization, right, and you don't have a great connection to young people, is there a way to maybe start that? What do you guys think?
Hi. So I keep thinking of our TRL training, which we've been increasing over the time. So one thing to do while you're sitting at home or sitting at your office is to go on the internet and identify the community organizations and partners, as Laura had mentioned, who are doing things in your community. Introduce yourself virtually to them. And then if there are things that your organization is doing, events that they're having during this time of COVID-19 that are special, or things that had already been going on, you want to start sharing that information. So I don't know that your immediate thing would be to say, hey, let's recruit, but I think you do want to introduce yourself and let people know what resources are available. And if your organization is doing something special, share that with those community partners, because right now we do know that people are looking to identify resources that are available in the local community. And so by identifying the resources yourself and introducing yourself as a viable resource, that will help to build your capacity for recruitment as time goes on. That's just my suggestion.
That's great.
Yeah, I absolutely second that. Make those community connections for sure, and turn outward. Look to see what's in your community. Ask yourself, what organizations are already serving youth, and how can I make myself a part of that? libraries that I've worked in, we've had really excellent relationships with the school librarians, and I think that's so essential. We got into school libraries to meet their teens and had a really good time getting to know them and having that professional relationship there too. So definitely partner with your schools, but make yourself a resource in the community and make yourself available to other community organizations, because if they already have knowledge or their finger on the pulse of what's going on, you'll certainly want to be included in on that. And I think during this time, people are being very open and receptive to that. So it's a really great time, yes, to make those connections.
I would just also say, if you have any forms, any registration, any parental waivers, any contact information, you can first try reaching out to the families, check in on the families, and then working through whatever that family structure is to see interested students through whether it's a text message, a phone call, email, whatever contact lists you may already have.
Great. Some great advice for folks. And I see some people in the chat also talking about this. So we're going to switch gears. I wanted to make sure that we gave some time to our providers to talk about what they're doing. And some of them may actually talk about outreach or, how they're getting groups together. Laura, Corri, and Valerie, thank you so much. Hopefully at the end we can bring you back, but I was also hoping that while you guys put yourselves on mute and we listen to other folks, that you look at the chat box, and if you have any other ideas or see any other questions coming through, if you'd be willing to help Taylor answer some of those while we're talking to our providers. Does that sound good? Awesome. Thank you guys so much. So now I wanted to turn it over to, let me go back to my presentation. Here we go. Okay, so we have 3 additional people who are going to talk a little bit from the provider's perspective on how they're reaching out to young people in their community. And those folks, as they take themselves off of mute and get ready, are Joe Bradley, who is an OSD coordinator at Hallahan High School Catholic High School for Girls, which is in downtown Philadelphia, right on the Parkway. And she runs this program through Catholic Social Services. Joyce Homan, who's a reference librarian at the Cambria County Library System. She's going to talk a little bit about what she's been doing with her group. And then Ashley Keel, who's the library director at Highland Community Library, is also going to talk about some fun stuff that the young people are doing there just to kind of stay connected. Again, you're going to hear today some things about programming, but a lot of this right now is really just about staying connected and finding ways to help young people feel, connected again, and also kind of taking the edge off of how, stressed we all are right now. Someone in the comments said, that they after school folks, provide, educational but also fun activities, and I think we should remember that too. Our young people do still deserve some opportunities to kind of unplug and have fun and do art or play games, whatever that is. So we're going to hear a little bit about that. So I'm going to start with Joe. And Joe, can you introduce I introduced you, so I think we're all good with that. Can you talk a little bit about the site you're working at and the types of young people you're working with, and then what you are doing as part of engaging folks during this time?
Sure thing. I work for Catholic Social Services. It provides out-of-school time spaces at high-need areas in Philadelphia. So the high school program, which is my favorite because that's where I am, is based at Hallahan High School. We have students from all over Philadelphia, so it does pull students from all of the different demographics, all of the different socioeconomic levels, all of the different home structures. So we have students where their parents need some time in order to finish their day before they pick up their child, or make sure that they're home before their child gets home so that the house isn't empty. One of the main things that we do is we listen to the students. We make sure that the activities we provide, the activities we plan, are with them in mind and their opinion, their voice, their interest. We always start the year with, suggest anything, basically, and we kind of whittle that down to, all right, 15 of you said you want to do this, so we're definitely going to put this higher up And only 2 of you said this, so maybe we can make that our own little thing that we do together. I have some amazing adults that work with me, and they cover a lot of different education backgrounds, styles, and just personalities. So a student might not mesh with me, but they're going to mesh with my assistant, and that's perfect. They don't all have to think I'm amazing. I think I'm amazing. They usually think I'm amazing, but I know that my personality is not the personality for everyone. Just like an adult, a kid gets to have an opinion, a student gets to have an opinion, and a high school student will definitely share that opinion. So we do a basic structure to our week. We have a set activity each day so that if their schedule is hectic, if they have projects due, if they have papers due, if they have to get study help, they know on that set day we are going to do that activity. And if they want to set aside time, they can come to us, do that activity, and then go back to whatever they need to do. They can use us as a way to take a break, to get study help, to get tutoring, and that's what the normal was. That's not what the normal is now. So we are working to transition to the virtual world as a way to still provide that outlet, that activity space, making sure that if it's not following the exact structure we usually do, that it still has some of the elements. And that's what we've been navigating right now. That's what I've been navigating from home with my staff and with pretty much any resource I'm able to find, which could be from the kids themselves, which is awesome when they suggest something and we can follow through with it, or from just any person within the community or within my sphere of people that I happen to know that are also sharing resources. So one thing that I have enjoyed with this whole situation is that everybody is becoming a sharing resource. I think it's important that we continue that, even if we don't have to be distant from each other. I think that that's one of the positives that we will hopefully take from this whole situation.
Joe, that's great. And so can you talk a little bit about some of the adjustments you've made? I know, we're still in the early stages of this. And as you mentioned, you had your set schedule, right? And now things are just like, young people are dealing with this too. We are as adults, right? It's like, we used to do this. We used to go into the site and do X, Y, and Z, and you're used to planning. Can you talk a little bit about how you've had to adjust and how you've stayed connected with your young people during this time? Anything specific that you have done?
Sure. We are pretty lucky since we are based in a school. We do have access to some of the resources that the school provides to the students. Our students use a Google platform, which means that Google Classroom is available. And the school initially set us up as also a teacher in their database for email. So we have a Google Classroom just for OST. And within that, we have a teen reading lounge classroom. We have a cooking activity classroom. We have a sewing activity classroom. We have a ongoing trivia. And I want to say there's a gaming classroom, or they just always talk about gaming in any of them. So I'm not sure if it carries over from spot to spot, but it's the same group of kids. So it's usually the same topic areas. With the Google Classroom, we've set up a schedule with my team of adults. We each create either a trivia question or an activity or a post or a stress relieving resource that we schedule to post at 3 o'clock on a specific day. So it becomes available to the students during the regular after school time. There's no due date. We are doing a little bit of a point value system so that we can see who's actually responding, and they're going to earn an incentive for just, even if it's, I don't know what the answer to this is, they're going to get some points of recognition for taking the time to respond. And that's just meant to be consistent with how we are in our space normally. We love trivia. We love doing random little like factoids together as a whole group. And it's a way to continue that, a little bit of a sense of normalcy. It's been interesting. I will say it's been interesting. I do a lot of posts with, I hope this works correctly for you. Please let me know if it doesn't, so that the students can let me know if what I'm posting on my end is not showing up on their end, and just communicating in that manner. As far as permissions and things like that, since we are using the student database from the school, and our initial sign up to do programming with us does include a parent permission, a media consent, a technology consent, and if we can reach out to them directly. The parents can opt for us not to reach out to them directly or to use their email, as well as cell phone. So we set it up within those parameters. And when this happened, we went back through as best we could with verify that everybody opted for emails to be okay, which pretty much was the case.
That's great to know. And I think that that's an important thing to say. And I think most people on this call would be, mindful of that, parental permissions, whether or not there are rules around reaching out directly, because those, unfortunately, we live in a world where those things absolutely matter, right? I mean, we don't want to necessarily hold young people at a distance. But Joe, I think that's important to mention that you do have some protocols at your school that you have to follow to make sure that you're within bounds of reaching out to young people. The one last thing I wanted to ask is, one thing I wanted to pick up on, and then one last question. There's a guide online that we're going to share with you guys, and I might, if I have time, I'm going to actually pop it out at the end. It's called Leading Groups Online, and it just was created for COVID-19. And the idea is, if you had something in person, now you have to flip it over to online for anybody, for adults, for young people, whatever. How do you do that? And it's a great step-by-step guide to do that. One of the things they mention is practitioners, don't take it too seriously. Give yourself a little bit of a break. Be honest with the young people about, or whoever you're working with, that this may not work. We're doing the best we can, but try to create a little bit of sense of normalcy and let them know that sometimes you're failing too. It's a nice, or let them lead. And these are all things that have come out in the guide. And I just wanted to mention that, Joe, that I'm glad you said that, because I think, we're so sometimes worried about, oh, we got to connect, we got to have this program, we got to have this engagement thing. Right now is not the time for perfection. I mean, even if you're doing something as simple as stress-free activities, here's a few ideas, and you don't know whether or not they've done them. They may not tell you, but, maybe they will, and giving them an opportunity to share back how that went, or just letting young people use that how they need to. You don't always have to know whether or not they've done it, right? And you won't, That's just the reality of it. So that's great. And so my final question, Joe, is if someone is thinking about engaging with their young people, given that they know all the regulations for their organization and whatnot on doing that, what advice would you give to them, for trying something?
Well, just try it, honestly. Just like any lesson that I was developing early on, I would get some guinea pigs, some neighbors' kids, some of my friends' kids. I would try out lessons in person. Everybody has a different presentation style. Me in person is much different than when I'm typing something out. So try to get some of your normal personality into your typing, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe initially use some of those good structures that we talk about when we're talking to someone or typing a professional letter, but that's not how you usually talk to students. You develop a relationship with them, you develop a connection with them, you develop a style with them. I have a student that I hadn't heard from, and I emailed them directly, a very lovely, I'm concerned about you, I just want to make sure everything's okay, I heard from your sister, I haven't heard from you. My response from that student was, I am fine, thank you, goodbye. Just boom, boom, boom. So, and that's that student. That's their personality. That is their style. So that's expected of them. But you might also have a student that you reach out to and they're just, I don't have internet. My phone is, we're stressed out. We've got a grandmom home, and just letting them know that they can contact you if they want. One of the positive things I think for the Google Classroom platform is that all of my staff is also listed as a teacher within the classroom. So there's a lot of transparency. If they see something from a student that they connect better with, they can reach out directly. And again, just give it a try. I've been using the limited technology I have. Classrooms are very high tech. I personally had to learn how to do all the smartboard stuff, everything for in a classroom space, but at home I'm pretty low tech. So I have my phone, I have my work laptop, and I have time. So I've been working on, and I can share this out if you want from sharing my screen. I've been just using my phone and what capability it has to create video content, photo time-lapse content, and just posting that along with the initial resource that I used. So for the sewing students, I'm actually making masks to share out to different medical field. People have requested them. They know that I sew. Once someone knows that you sew, they ask for things like that. If it's a drive, So I'm doing time lapse of making a batch, and each time I set up my sewing, I'm setting up my camera and I am uploading it to my sewing group students. I'm also sending them a non-sewing machine based project or activity. So if they have hand sewing equipment, they can use that. For cooking, which we do every Friday, I'm usually filming on Thursday so I can figure it out and post it by Friday. And if anyone is okay with it, I'm going to share my screen really quickly. Jen, is that all right?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. And let me click that. Okay, and I'm just going to slide over to my Google Drive, and this is really just very, very low tech. My phone with time lapse propped very precariously above my stove in order to show them cooking. And this was just using what we had available. So it's very quick. But again, it's just one of those things where they can see how to do it. Oh, pause. And I can finish sharing my screen.
That's great.
Again, that's just a small thing. It's a small thing that they can repeat, they can duplicate, and they can share it to me if they want.
And you can use your phone for that, right? So you don't necessarily need, yeah, that's great.
It's in my phone setting. So as much as my students have teased me about my outdated phone, it still has some pretty good capability. But again, it's a small thing, and it may seem like a small thing, but for making that connection, continuing that consistency of what they expect of us, what they expect of me is important. One student did request my 5 o'clock reminder because our programming finishes at 6 o'clock. So around 5 o'clock, it's usually the reminder. If you're traveling home on the bus, if you're getting picked up, make sure that your parent or designated adult, as I call it, knows that you're still here. So that's a regular daily announcement that they're used to hearing. And there was actually a request from a student for me to pre-record that and post it for them so that they could hear it, which is a joke, is funny, is hilarious, and is completely up my alley. So I'm currently working on doing that for them.
That's
but
great.
Again, it's the consistency, I think, and after school spaces are a special window of time for students to be themselves and still have a support and a mentor or a person that they can connect with that has gone through this, not this, but has gone through teenage life and has survived teenage life and is a hopefully capable adult that they look up to and has some of those skill sets that they enjoy. And that's really the important thing, I think, that we all need to keep in mind.
That's great, Joe. And you're getting a lot of love from the comments. So thank you so much for sharing that and for sharing how you're approaching staying connected with folks in your young people in your OST program. So I'm going to move on. So thank you so much, Joe. That was great. I'm going to move on to Joyce and Ashley. So Joyce, I'm going to have you talk a little bit first. And if you could just reintroduce yourself, let people know what library you're from, and then you are ready. I'm not sharing anything, so you can share your screen to talk about what you're doing with your young people.
Okay, sounds good. Hi, everybody. My name is Joyce Homan. I'm a teen and reference librarian at the Cambria County Library. These are definitely, people have already said, unprecedented times, and we felt like we had to respond pretty quickly. I love my teens, and I knew that I just could not imagine not being able to see them. So I am fortunate in that we have a fair amount of programming, and I had an email base set up where they actually were keeping in contact, and their parents as well. So I was able to get those permissions to do some of the things I'm going to show you. If you don't have that, completely understand, your situation might be different, but please feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to brainstorm with you about ways that you could use some of these platforms. I'm going to show you three different we're going to go quickly, and I'm going to show you three different programs that we're using with our kids. And the first one that I'm so very proud of, and I'm hoping, Jen, everybody can see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this is Discord. If you have teenagers, or maybe, teens in your library use Discord, I was not familiar. My kids schooled me very quickly about Discord. This was actually a suggestion from one of our teens about setting up a Discord server. So just a little bit about Discord. Discord is generally used. It's an app and it's considered often to be used for gaming, but I think people have started to realize the robustness and the functionalities of it and started using it for other things. So we decided that we were going to set up a local Discord server for our teens. And again, that was one of my teens' suggestions. Always trying to let them drive the train as much as possible and give me good ideas. And there's been a lot of chat I see in the chat box about different platforms that teens are on. I can assure you, I am old by every means in this world, but that's great. I mean, it's very chat friendly. A lot of the teens are using it just to connect other than gaming. So it's very easy to set up the server. You can go online and basically just download, and if you're going to do any go live events, you do want to download the app to your computer, or you can just use it in the browser as well, but sign up for an account, very quick to do that, very easy. And we created one called Cambria County Library Teens. And so I'm just going to kind of take you through some of our channels that we make, because that's what you do. You create channels in the Discord server. And I should say too, just a little more about Discord, that one of the amazing functions of it is that it has asynchronous chat. So if any of you are familiar with chat rooms, if you're old enough to remember those, it's sort of a throwback to those. And you've got that, you could be chatting, so we could be chatting live with each other, or someone can post something like a message board, basically, and then people can come behind and read and comment. But the other functionalities that it has is that you can also go into voice channels and you can chat with each other. So you can just turn your microphone on and have a chat with each other, or you can also show movies or anime. Again, very mindful of copyright. Make sure that you have all the permissions. You're going to see some book covers here, and we have streamed some anime that we had permission to stream, but I would check it out. Someone else had mentioned permissions have been a little more relaxed during this time, so you may be able to get that information and then perhaps have a watch party. But we do that. We have a music channel. There is a bot that you can install where basically people can play songs. So I believe Valerie mentioned Song of the Day. You can say, hey, let's have a dance party together and play music together, and then just pick your song and throw it around to each other and let people play music. We have streamed anime together, and then you can also chat as you're watching the anime. So lots of opportunities to connect, with me, but certainly even more importantly with each other, and to be able to get to know each other and share with each other. So those are kind of the different aspects of it, the live portions as well as these text channels. So one of the things, we have 4 or 5 people, I will say you have moderators in this environment, so that you're making sure that nobody's posting anything that's offensive, upsetting. We kind of share off the duties with each other, and I have another person from teen programming from another organization that is mod here, and then also the teens stepped up and wanted to do some modding, so they're doing that moderating. And one of our teens, I will say her name because she deserves all the recognition, her name is Sydney. She has been just so instrumental in teaching me, in kind of setting up the look and feel of our server, and she also knew about server rules. So she made a channel where we put the server rules, and basically that's kind of, this is the conduct that we expect while you're in this space, and if you don't follow the rules, then you get 3 warnings and then you're booted from the server. So if anybody has concerns about that as well. I should touch on privacy very quickly as well. If you're concerned about, is this just an open forum chat room and you're going to have people come by spamming with pictures or things like that, we were very careful about only sending out the link to teens that we knew and had a relationship with, and they check in with us about, can I add a person? And again, we have the moderators to kind of make sure that everything is going smoothly, and we've not, knock on wood, had any problems in the couple weeks so far we've had it set up. And people just seem very excited about it, very willing to help. So we've got a little welcome space, server rules, a check-in here to kind of talk about, how are you feeling? How are you doing during this time? And sometimes, people keep to the themes pretty much, but sometimes people will, nothing is perfect. We're happy about just being together and be able to share those things, but it's a good space to kind of check in with people and see how they're feeling. introductions. I'll just show you briefly the kids posting pictures and talking about what they enjoy. And of course, a lot of them know each other through in-person interactions, but this is kind of bringing a different dynamic, I think, to the kids and helping them to really get to know each other. I also find, and I love this because I am an ambivert but have introvert tendencies, that the introverts are kind of stepping up and taking the space on and saying, hey, you know, this is my chance to shine and talk about what I love. And it's just amazing. It's amazing the things they post. I never would have guessed this. So just again, trying to be really brief. We've got Animal Planet. We post pictures of our pets. We've got an art room where people post what they're working on with art activities. And that's varying every day. I give them sometimes art challenges. And again, we're hoping to really continue to expand this. And I definitely don't think it's going to go away after the quarantine is up. So I think it's going to continue. We post events happening, online events. Someone had done something called Camp Quarantine, which was like a teen event that had music and dance and performance. And so we kind of streamed that and watched it together for a little bit. The rhythm commands, again, playing music together, a suggestion box if people have ideas, and that has been quite popular. People have posted a lot of ideas there. And then shout out to Jen and Teen Reading Lounge. We have a Teen Reading Lounge channel. So that just kind of started. Our first book, Matt De La Pena, was gracious enough to say, go ahead and post anything from the cover to him reading the book aloud. So we've sort of been able to, in a hybrid way, keep it going online, and we hope to grow that a little more. And then Write Your Life. So, you know, I give them writing prompts, or they've been sharing their writing, just sort of unprompted, posting stories and different things. And then, of course, what are you reading? So we're talking about books that we're reading too. So that is just a very quick, brief overview. Again, I'm so happy to answer any questions, but I highly, highly recommend it. I feel like the teens have really, it's been a safe space for them to kind of connect and talk with me and each other. So I'm grateful for that. So Jen, if I have time, I'm going to share just our 2 other quick resources.
Sure.
Is that all right? Yeah?
Yeah, if you could do it within 2 minutes.
Okay, 1 minute for each resource. That's awesome. Okay, so first resource would be just as we're doing now, talking in Zoom. We've connected on Zoom with the kids, and we do an in-person open mic night. So we have had we had our first open mic night this week, and Heather, who is our co-provider, she basically all she did was just she pulls the music up for background, puts her screen up to her you know, so people can see her, and then we just sang. The kids also do a one-word story, so they'll go around. That was not as successful because it was hard to know. We have to figure out a way to make sure everybody's in line and we're sharing together. But we did one-word stories, we did Mad Libs, kids sang, they read poetry, and we just did it for an hour. And honestly, that was the most amazing to, again, check in with the kids at the beginning and say, how are you feeling and what's going on? Some of the kids were like, I am not sleeping. We were like, oh, are you gaming? Or they're like, no, I'm just I can't sleep. So to be able to hear kids' concerns and talk to them and be supportive, that's pretty amazing. So again, if anybody needs help with open mic night, let me know. And then the last resource is Kahoot. Let me go back to the login screen. This is, some of you I'm sure are probably using it for trivia or teaching opportunities in your school or your library. But if you're not, it's an excellent free resource, and they actually just made the premium part free for educators. So I sent an email to see if librarians fall under that category, but premium has a lot of nice additional features, but the free version is great. Here's a teen trivia that I made for music videos, and we basically can just play online. And actually this kind of leads into what Ashley is going to show you, because it's a similar platform to the Jackbox game. So again, some of it's fun, some of it's educational, all of it is meant to be connected and just have our teens stay connected and emotionally supported during this time. So that's it for me.
Thank you so much, Joyce, for all of that. And I think, you know, I'm looking at time. I want to make sure Ashley gets to share some of her fun the stuff that she's been doing with young people at Highlands Library. So I'm going to ask if you guys have questions, you can put them into the chat box and we can always share them later with our panelists and share answers, you know, in written form. I saw some questions about permission and how you get them quickly. So Joyce, I don't know if you want to answer that question in the chat box while Ashley's talking. And also just a reminder, Taylor is sharing the virtual sign-in sheet for your name and email address, or you can just put it right in the chat and we'll do the work of picking those all up after the fact so we can send you information. So without further ado, Ashley, you're on. You're going to take us home. We have about 8 minutes if you want to share a little bit about Jackbox, which I played last night, which is so fun with my nieces. So go ahead.
All right, awesome. So I'm going to do this as quick as possible. There's a lot to talk about, but my name is Ashley Keel. I'm the library director at Highland Community Library. We were actually recipients of a TRL grant back in 2014, and our group is still going with some of the original participants, which is so awesome. I wanted to introduce Jackbox games to you if you're not familiar. So let me share my screen real quick. Okay. Can everybody see? I can't tell. Okay.
You can see it, Ashley.
You can see it? Okay. So Jackbox games are a series of irreverent and super fun party games that were designed for different platforms, including PS4, Nintendo Switch, Xbox, and Steam, which is what we are using to host our games online. The number of players who can play each game range from a max of 4 to a max of 100, with most games maxing out at about 8 players each. Most games feature an audience, so if the game itself is full, people can still participate even if they can't win. The games were released individually, but the cheapest way to buy them is through a party pack, which you can see here. There are now 6 of them. And we've been playing Jackbox games at our library with our teens for the last year and a half or so, and they always ask for opportunities to play, so they really enjoy it. And since we've been closed, we've been playing online every Wednesday night, so via Zoom, which is what we're using now. So the games are all very visually appealing. They're really funny in their presentation, and they're very easy to learn. I can't overstress this. In each game, the narrator gives simple instructions about how to play. There are no rules, no rule books to memorize, and the games are very intuitive, and they tell you the instructions as through each step of gameplay. Really the hardest part about playing these games when you're streaming them is setting up the streaming. The gameplay itself is really easy. So that's one of the things I really like about this, adapting it online, because some of these party packs we just bought and never played, and the kids just picked it up so quickly because it's very easy. So there are a couple different categories of games. There are trivia games, including You Don't Know Jack, Lie Swatter, Trivia Murder Party, and then Guesspionage, which is kind of like Family Feud, except you're guessing percentages of people who believe or do a certain thing. There are drawing games, Drawful, Bidiots, Civic Doodle. One of the favorites is TKO, which you can see on the screen here. In TKO, you design t-shirts by submitting drawings and slogans, and then you put them together to compete for the best design. There are fill-in-the-blank games like Fibbage, Quiplash, Survive the Internet. Dictionarium is one of our new favorites right now. You invent definitions of a made-up word, create synonyms, and then use the word in a sentence. There are collaborative and bluffing games. Push the Button is really fun. One person is an alien on a spaceship, and everybody has to figure out who the alien is. And then there are random games. One of our favorite random games right now is called Role Models. This is a great game to play with teens that know each other. So all of the players assign roles to each other based on a category. So for example, in a 4-player game, we might have to decide who in the group is best represented by John, Paul, George, and Ringo. So how we play right now. I have purchased all the games on Steam, which you can see here. If you're not familiar with Steam, it's an online gaming platform that is free to download and host the games for PC and Mac. Then I open up Steam and the party pack we're playing, which I'm going to do right now. Give me a sec. Hopefully it's not too loud. Okay, share. Okay, can you guys see the Jackbox screen now? it's switched over.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I can't see the video, so I'm just making sure. Okay, so this is what your start screen looks like. So once this is up in my screen, I share it like I'm doing for you right now. So everyone needs to have 2 devices available, which is one of the downsides to this. They need one device dedicated to seeing the screen like you're seeing right now, and then another one to actually uses the controller. So we're gonna go into the games real quick. And you can see here it tells you how many players. Quiplash is a really popular one, so I'm going to jump in here and just show you guys real quick how to log into this. And Joyce, I know you've done this with me a bunch, so if you wouldn't mind maybe logging in so we can show people how it works. So on your separate device, you go to jackbox.tv on your mobile phone, and then you type in the room code. So each game has its own room code. And so that way you're not, it's not anybody can jump into this game. It's just the people who are seeing your screen. So Joyce just jumped in. She's the VIP. There's my husband who's helping me out. So once you have the room full, the VIP will have the option to hit everybody's in, which we're not going to do right now because we don't have time to show an actual game. But it's very, very easy. If you wanted to go to jackbox.tv right now, you can use the room code and join us. So I'm going to hit escape, actually. It's distracting me, the noise. Okay, so there are games that appeal to everyone in this. Like I said, there's drawing, there's trivia, there's fill in the blank. They all encourage humor, creativity, quick thinking, and even some learning. I've learned a lot from Trivia Murder Party, which is pretty funny. We do schedule game nights at the library occasionally, like when we're open. But I have found that we play Jackbox in our teen groups most often when something really stressful is going on. So like sometimes TRL will have a book and we'll be, ready for the discussion, and they're just like, ugh, like, we just had, PSSAs or whatever, and we're all just so tired. So we just put the Jackbox games on, and it's a great way to distract and get your mind off of things while also really having a good time. It also allows them to be funny and creative and silly, or work together to solve a puzzle. And I have them keep their audio on while we're playing so that they get a chance to talk to each other while we're playing the games. They have really, really enjoyed doing this while we've been closed. So, I've tried a couple of I've made some suggestions of other things, activities that we could do, but they have been pretty Jackbox only right now, which is fine. So a couple tips and tricks about the party packs. So you can buy each game individually, but each party pack features 5 games, and it's the best deal. They cost between $25 and $30. Steam is free. The Jackbox website often has sales on the Steam packs, so I would check there before purchasing in Steam. Drawful 2, which is one of the games, is currently available for free through the Steam store right now. You get a lot of mileage out of one party pack, so you don't have to spend a lot of money on this. Another tip that I cannot overstress, please turn on the family-friendly filter before playing with your teens. I learned this the hard way, thankfully in person. And on that subject, the teens are way more likely to get racy with their answers when they're playing online than in person. My rule with them has always been, I have some rules, but my main rule is don't be mean. And they know that rule still applies when they're playing online. So even when they say some things that are occasionally a little more shocking than you might expect, especially from some of your quiet kids, they know not to direct it at any person. And ultimately, seeing what they come up with and how their senses of humor are really like shining through this is great. I asked them what they wanted me to tell you last night when we played today, and they said to share that the trump card for everything right now is the word coronavirus, and also to expect a lot of TikTok inside jokes that I don't understand. I have some more specific tips for streaming that I'm happy to share with anyone who wants to try it, and I'm going to be setting up a game tonight at 6 o'clock for anybody who would like to join and play or be in the audience to see how it works. So I will definitely send out something about that at some point here.
Ashley, thank you so much. This is awesome. We've had a lot of questions about this. So Ashley, if you don't mind, I know we're pretty much bumping up on time, but if it's okay, we're just going to go over a little bit. If folks have to log off, great, just put your information in the chat box. But Ashley, if you'd be willing to put your email address and maybe some information about the play tonight, I don't know if you can do that, and folks can join potentially, because we are getting a lot of questions about this, because it's super easy and fun. What a way to let us on steam. So thank you all to our providers for sharing what you're doing. We are pretty much at time, but I did want to just quickly, I wanted to open it up. I know Valerie wanted to mention a few final thoughts, and then I am going to share, while she's sharing that, I'm also going to share a slide with some additional resources for you guys and some ready-made content if you are thinking of developing, you know, some online programming, including that resource I talked about, which is Leading Groups Online. So Valerie, I'm going to open it up to you while I share a couple of my slides, just so people can see some other resources.
Thanks. I want to thank all of you for joining us today, and kudos to my panelists, my co-panelists, who've just been sharing so much rich and important information. And I just want to close with saying, kind of getting back to the details, as you're doing this work and learning more about some ways to connect with young people, make sure that you're keeping your own professional journal or notes, whether it's virtual or handwritten, documenting what you're doing and how it reflects positive youth development. So if you are, as was just mentioned by Joyce, if you're giving the young people a chance to lead the conversations, lead the discussion, if you're connecting with authors or others in the community who are giving you access to free resources, if you've been having more conversations with parents or community partners, you want to document all the things that you are doing so that as we move and transition to other spaces beyond this period in time, you can really connect it back to some of those, that framework for how to do positive youth development well at all times, especially for those audiences that are disenfranchised. I saw a couple messages around young people who don't have cell phones, because some of these resources are going to be awesome for the young people who cannot come into the library or to your out of school time program regularly once sort of life changes in a different way. So thank you again. Remember to take notes about what you're doing, what you're learning, what you're discovering, and continue to share with one another, and be good to yourself and continue to be good to young people.
Thank you so much, Valerie. Those are some great last words. So on the screen, I just shared some ready-made content resources. I hope you guys saw that. We will also share this out, the slides out, you know, if you gave us your email address. So please make sure to do that in the chat box. And then some additional resources, this Leading Groups Online. I'm going to share that just very quickly. This is a great resource for, and now I got to find it, so hold on. There we are. So here it is right in front of you. This is what it looks like. You can go to Leading Groups Online, and I don't know if you guys can see this print, but this was made, again, specifically for the COVID-19 crisis, and how to flip some of those online engagements, and recognizing that it's not the same, but we can still do something. So things like 10 basic principles of doing this, some tools, how do you move your plans online, frequently asked questions, and this is an awesome, awesome resource. So I recommend you guys take a look at this. The final thing I'm gonna say is, please make sure to contact us. We have some of our contact information here. If you know, you had questions about, you had colleagues who couldn't get into the training today, and they want, you know, you want to share with them the recording and all that good stuff, you can contact either me or Taylor and Julia, who's our new education program officer. Join the newsletter so that next time we do this, which there might be some appetite for this, so maybe we will do this again soon. You would get, if you sign up for our direct e-news, you will get, you know, information directly to you, although we will also have your email address as well, but we recommend you sign up for the Teen Reading Lounge e-newsletter and for other updates. Thank you all so much. Thank you to our panelists, to Laura, to Valerie, to Corri, to Joe, to Joyce, to Melissa, or sorry, Ashley, for all of the stuff that you shared today, and Taylor for managing the chat box. We really appreciate, you know, all you guys are doing, and if you need anything, reach out, and don't forget to reach out to your young people, because they need us. Thank you all.